What's up, guys? This is Chris from Team Pantheon. I'm going to do a card profile for you on my Shadow Paladin Revengers, specifically Raging Form Dragon. Alright. First, I'll go through the grade 3s and work my way down. Start with 4 Raging Form Dragon. The skill is Limit Break 4. Choose 3 rear guards with Revenger in the name and retire them. And you take a copy of him and re-ride him over. The Vanguard as stand. And after he attacks, you pay the cost. When you do, he re-rides re-stand with plus 10,000 power, and you'll get another attack. He also has an auto skill, Counterblast 1. When he attacks, you can give him plus 3,000. And next for grade 3s, 4 Mordred Phantom. He's a break ride of the deck. When his skill is Limit Break 4, when you ride over him, when a Shadow Paladin rides over him, Counterblast 1, Superior Call a grade 2 or less from your deck to the field, and that gains 5,000 power. And his auto skill, when you attack a Vanguard, he gets plus 2k.
Chris, actually, I have a question about Mordred Phantom. I noticed, when we've been play testing and also when we've been playing games against each other, sometimes you actually have to sit on Mordred Phantom, back to back, break ride over break ride. Do you find that the farming aspect of Mordred Phantom completely makes up for the fact that sometimes you don't actually end up seeing Raging Form till late game?
Absolutely. The deck is not the greatest with Counterblast efficiency, but Mordred's effect is really Counterblast efficient, just because every turn, potentially, you can get another unit down, and it gets plus 5k.
Oh, so it's pretty much a break-even, because the Counterblast is made up for by the 5,000 power from the rear guard you farm out of your deck, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's an extra unit that you don't call from your hand. It thins your deck for triggers, get more Raging Forms, It's a really solid break ride. I think it is my favorite. I think it's one of the best. So, that's our grade 3s. Moving on to grade 2s. I run 4 Blaster Dark Revenger. His skill is auto, Counterblast 2, when he's placed on the Vanguard or Rearguard circle. If you have a Vanguard with Revenger in the name, you can pay the cost and you can retire one of your opponent's front row Rearguards. And actually, it's debatable that you run 4 Blaster Dark Revenger in every Revenger deck, just because potential combos with him. And we'll go over those later when we get to the cards. Next, we run 4 Nullity Revenger Masquerade. He's just our 12k swinger, a staple for really any deck, and he's good. He's a nice beat stick, especially when you don't have anything to boost him.
Have you ever contemplated maybe dropping down your 12k account to 3, since you can look for him through Mordred Phantom, or do you still find even when you can get him out so easily that using 4 is a more consistent way of seeing him?
No, I would always run forward, because Raging Form's ability is the one that you want to get off the most, and since you sacrifice 3 rear guards, you may end up late game finding columns that don't have a boosting unit, and obviously 12k swingers don't need a boost to hit most Vanguards in people's decks nowadays. So I would always run 4. And last for grade 2s, we run 4 Dark Cloak Revenger Tartus. Her skill is Counterblast 2 when she's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard circle, and you have a Shadow Paladin Vanguard, you may pay the cost. When you do, Superior Call a grade 1 or less Rearguard in the same column as her. She's really important just for getting off Raging Form's effect, and again, a lot of this deck is based around Superior Calling. So Tartu's a pretty decent staple. She is the only one that I would probably drop down to 3.
Well, since you said that, I mean, I know there's like a lot of debate over the fact that you know, a lot of people rather do like more Tart 2 over Blaster Dark, and when I see you play, you usually don't even use Blaster Dark skill, you go for Tart 2. So, I mean, do you prefer Tart 2 over Blaster Dark, or do you, I mean, or just depending on what match you're going up against that day or whatever?
No, I always prefer Tart 2 skill over Blaster Dark. I think this deck's strongest. I think this deck at its strongest is having field presence, just for like letting your opponent know that you always have the ammo to get off Raging Form skill.
Yeah,
And,
so you'd just rather go for the +1 than the minus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd rather do that.
It's a good strategy. Probably one of the best cards in your deck if you ask me anyway.
Alright, that takes care of our grade 2s. Moving on to grade 1s. Run 4 Perfect Guard. It's about enough said. 4 Perfect Guards.
So why exactly do you run Perfect? I'm kidding.
Because they don't have a Quintet wall yet. Next up, 4 Barrier Trooper Revenger Dorant. Probably the most important grade 1, almost more important than the Perfect Guard, because his skill is when a unit named Blaster Dark Revenger is placed on Vanguard or Rearguard in the same column as him, you take a damage point from your damage and turn it face up, and that enables a lot of combos. Like, a lot of times you'll have a Dorant, you'll call a Blaster Dark Revenger, unflip a damage, which could free up 2 counterblasts, then use Tart 2.
And also, essentially, it pretty much turns a Blaster Dark play from a Counterblast 2 to a Counterblast 1, because you're pretty much just... It's the cost is cut in half, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Again, Dorant and Blaster Dark Revenger, there is a lot of combos with their stuff. I can either retire something for 1 Counterblast, or I can get Tart 2's effect off. I can use all my Counterblast early and unflip 1 for a Break Ride Counterblast later. A lot of stuff you can do with it. Next up for grade 1s, I run 3 Transcendent Revenger Masquerade. He's just a 12k swinger when you have a Vanguard with Revenger in the name. He's just a nice beat stick, and really he is the card that I would play around with when editing my grade 1s, if I ever changed them.
He's the only knight that has a suit.
Yeah. He's always showing up to the battle stylishly. And last for grade 1s, I run 2 Revenger Dark Bond Trumpeter. And his skill is auto Counterblast 1 when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard. If I have a Shadow Paladin Vanguard, I can Superior Call a grade 0 at rest from my deck to the Rearguard.
So Chris, you were saying how Masquerade is the grade 1 you'd switch around in your deck.
Yeah.
Now, what exactly would you switch around with it? What might you put in for other grades or just to replace him?
Well, Raging Form has an 11k booster for Soul Blast, and that could be really good, because since you're constantly rewriting Raging Form, you'll always have Soul Blast to use and constantly swing for 22.
Okay.
That's something to think about. I could take out 1 and put 1 Masquerade, put in another Dark Bond Trumpeter, take out these 2, put in an 11k booster, and obviously with the future sets, there's going to be more cards out that I might want to play with.
Well, since you run Dark Bond Trumpeter at 2, would you consider maybe doing 1 Trumpeter and then 1 personal booster? Because, I mean, when I see you play, when you play against me, like, I rarely maybe see you get his skill off maybe once. That's just to, like, tutor into your field so you can get your Raging Form off.
I don't get Dark Bond Trumpeter skill off?
No, you get it off, but sometimes I notice you probably maybe get off 1 per game.
Yeah, well, that's really just because he's the backup Tart 2. In a pinch where I don't have a Tart 2 to get off, I can use Dark Bond Trumpeter. He's cheaper, and really his skill is, he is just here to get off Raging Form skill. That's his only purpose. But no, I would take out a Masquerade for a personal booster for Raging Form, if anything.
Okay.
So that's it for our grade 1s. Moving on to triggers. Pretty standard setup. 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. A pretty standard setup, especially for a rewriting Vanguard. It's really good. I would never change this trigger lineup. I don't think there's anything better I could do.
I mean, when you're using a Persona Ride or a Persona Blast Vanguard in general, it's probably just good to have standard.
Yeah. And now on to the starter, Creeping Dark Goat. I don't run the starter that Superior calls a Blaster Dark for Counterblast 1, just because Blaster Dark isn't that important. Like, he isn't the necessity of the deck. Creeping Dark Goat is much more important. He's a grade 3 searcher, and, Counterblast 1, look at the top 5, search for a grade 3 or greater, and add it to your hand, and reveal it to your opponent. It's really good, because you want them, not him. But, anyway, guys, that's